Every year, some of the top educators, entertainers, and philosophers in the art of magic come together to deliver 20-minute, short, concise, and entertaining talks.
I was at a loss for a topic for this year's conference, and then I remembered the advice given by Bennett Cerf, the founder of Random House, when he was asked how one went about writing a bestseller. He said books on the Civil War were always quite popular, as were ones on medicine. Animal stories, too, always generally sold quite well. Thus, a book about the adventures of Lincoln's doctor's dog would be a big hit. But don't worry, you're not going to have to sit through a pedantic presentation about the perils of a president-physician's pooch. But only because it didn't play well with my test audience. I've completely rewritten the entire presentation and repurposed the Lincoln doctor's dog stratagem, making it more applicable for today's assembly, which, as we all know, is comprised primarily of magicians. Therefore, any topic with the word magic in the title is certain to spark interest. Two of our faculty members, Larry Haas and Bob Neal, often speak at great length and sometimes even write books upon the subject of the gift of magic. So if I include that, not only do I gain their interest, but that of those sitting on either side of them, as they'll be forced to pay attention. You need to set the clock back a little bit. This is going to take. And our two founders, Jeff McBride and Eugene Berger, often wax eloquently on the spiritual or even theological side of our craft. So, if I combine all of these salient points together into a single presentation, how could I go wrong? And thus it is with great pleasure I present to you my 2010 Jeff McBride Magic and Meaning Pep Talk. Magic, the gift of immortality. Pretty serious sounding topic, so I should begin by posing a serious sounding question. Let's go with one of the classics. What is it that separates us from the animal? Many people simply put forth that it is just our opposable thumbs. Others contend it's our thumb tips. Opposable or not. After all, this is a conference devoted in part to the art of deception, so many in this room would be eager to put forth the notion that it is our ability to deceive others as well as ourselves. Well, half them got it. That elevates us above the so-called lesser creatures. But I contend that that's not the case. As is seen in this video, humans are not the only species versed in this art. Mr. Octopus's amazing vanishing act shows that we're not the only ones with the deceptive abilities. I hear he's actually been signed to replace Max Burton in his theater. So, and if anybody tells, I'm not talking. All right. So, if not deception, then what? Fire, speech, our use of tools, all worthy contenders. But I believe that the thing that shows us how we are uniquely human can be found on the cave paintings of Chauvet, France. And it's not the paintings, no. Animals themselves possess this gift. This was painted by a sea lion at the... I'm sorry, it's upside down. This was painted... I'm embarrassed, I'm sorry. This was painted by a sea lion at the New Orleans Zoo. So, what do we find in the midst of the cave paintings of Chauvet? It's this, the signature. Whoever it was all those millennia ago that put pigmented spit to stone, the art of creating simply wasn't enough. He had to let others know who it was that did it, why else signed it. And this is what elevates us above every other species on the planet. Our sense of self, our desire, and our need to leave our mark on the world and let others know who it was that put it there. We will never know the name of our prehistoric Picasso, but we know that he existed, and there's many things that we can tell from the fantastic art that he left behind. For instance, it appears he started a trend. And second, he could tell us nothing about the status of variety entertainment in his day. Sadly, unlike now, when even the most inane of acts can be preserved seemingly forever on YouTube. It would take the advent of writing to pass the theatrical arts on to future generations. Unfortunately, these early writings were expensive and time-consuming to produce, so they were reserved only for the most important of topics, laws of the land, the histories of kings, and of course, religion. Sadly, there were no books on conjuring in the Library of Alexandria. There are, however, a few scant references to magic through the ages. The Westcar Papyrus, which describes the performances of Betty. This letter from Seneca detailing what could possibly be a cups and ball worker. But we would not get a detailed account of the magician's craft until the first information age, brought about by the invention in 1436 of the printing press. But even then, it was slow in coming. For while books on every conceivable subject began to pour into Europe, expanding the libraries of accumulated knowledge from a few scant handful into magnificent collections containing thousands, it would be over 100 years after the invention of movable type that the first book was written, devoted entirely to magic. This, of course, is Prévost's Clever and Pleasant Inventions, published in 1584 in Lyon, France. The first book in English, Hocus Pocus Jr., arrived 28 years later in 1612. But these only scratch the surface of what was being performed in the period, mainly because these books were not aimed at the magic market. Elegant books like this were beyond the price range of your typical performer of the time, and you probably didn't possess the ability to read it anyway. No, these books were made for the armchair scholars of their day. Learned men with their cabinets of curiosity and their libraries of accumulated knowledge. They didn't want to be conjurers themselves. They simply wanted to know how the tricks worked. Thus, these books were basically the internet exposure videos of their day. No, back then, if you wanted to be a magician, you had to learn from a magician. The information was passed down orally from master to apprentice. So sadly, much of what was done is lost. And this is illustrated by the recent discovery in the British Museum of a document simply known as Sloane 424. It is written in hand in Italian sometime in the early 17th century and contains detailed descriptions of tricks hitherto completely unknown in the period, many of which were not believed to be invented until centuries later. What else has been lost throughout time? It is impossible to say, but for the tiny amount of information that we actually have on conjuring in this period, it's almost as if the magician simply didn't exist at all. Oh, sad, yes. Don't let this happen to you. Take a page from academia and publish or perish. Literally. Now, I don't mean that everybody should just run out there and market your magic ideas for profit. There's far, far too much of that going on these days. And as easy as it is for any idiot to then publish his own book on magic or a magic book for idiots, this is not the best suited medium for most of us. Face it. Not all of us have an entire book's worth of material in us, and those that do, sadly, will find that irregardless of how well received and highly acclaimed the book is, which this is a great book if you haven't got it, get it now, he's only going to sell 1,000 copies though. Very sad. And if you're self-published, you sell far less. Far less. Trust me. Now, many people, of course, will say that print is dead and the future of magic lies in the DVD, because anybody with a computer and a video camera can pump one of these suckers out. And sadly do. However, this is not the way to go. This is the Book of Kells. It was written 12 centuries ago and is as readable today as the day the final monk put down the quill. These are holograph or punch cards. In their day, which wasn't that far ago, these were the preferred medium for the storage of electronic data. They could hold anything from the contents of Tarbell to the schematics for an atomic bomb. What these cards contain, no one knows, as there are no machines left to read them. We are creating a potential black hole in the history of magic literature. Future generations will only ponder what is forever trapped on these strange silver discs. And who was that Paul Harris guy who put out so very many of them? So, if you're looking for the perfect medium to pass your magic knowledge on, it is the Magic Magazine. Well, no, not the Magic Magazine. That went out of business decades ago. I'm talking about Magic well, not Magic Magazine. I mean magic magazines in general. They come in all sorts of titles and sizes. Some actually don't have Mark Wilson on them. Every month, thousands of these are published and sent out to magicians all over the world who eagerly read them from cover to cover and then put them away carefully in boxes, closets, and basements, never to look at them again. Upon their demise, their tearful widow boxes them up and takes them to magic swap meets, where they are purchased by younger magicians who eagerly take them home to read them from cover to cover, before placing them into boxes, closets, and basements, where they will sit patiently awaiting the next generation. It is safe to say that a magic magazine has never been willfully destroyed. Thus, it has been that the known universe will actually fill with magic magazines in 2.7 billion years. All right, I just made that up. But it is a durable medium. The first magic magazine was published in 1793, and there's still copies of it floating around. So, be careful what you submit, as you never know where and when it will surface. And yes, that is our founder. So, who wrote a really cranky letter. I have it in my, oh, never mind. So I have covered the magic section of my talk. I have covered the immortality section. Now on to the gift. You don't publish for fame or profit, trust me. You publish to give back to the craft that has given you so much. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Philip who wanted to be a magician, just like the ones he saw on TV. But at his local magic shop, the books that he so desperately wanted to read were far beyond the meager funds that he had upon his person. All he could afford was cheesy magic sets or moldy magazines. Fortunately for us, chose the moldy magazines. He took these home and he read about tricks and moves and philosophies and opinions, reviews of shows, much of it written by folk long dead. But still, from beyond the grave, they were able to revitalize the classic discipline of passing information from master to apprentice. Our little Philip learned much from these magazines and became a professional magician and had cards printed up and eventually changed his name to Phil, but we know him better as Max. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong Max. This Max. Yes, Max Maven freely admits that he received much of his inspiration from the early magic magazines that he read as an impoverished child. He learned at the feet of people like you and me. And so this is why it is important to pass our knowledge on. Don't let it die with you, as it does no one any good. Go forth and share your knowledge, because who knows what young Maxes are being born to make profit from your